everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am making a stationery set for my, I guess, great aunt. On my husband's side, she loves sunflowers, and so this Simon Says Stamp Sunflower Fields set was perfect. I've done a little bit of prep work off screen. What I've done is I have cut some cardstock down to 10 by 7 and scored it the long on the 10-inch side at 5 to make a 5 by 7 card. I also have some Paper Studio yellow envelopes here. We're going to do some stamping on those envelopes as well. This is the Simon Says Stamp Sunflower Fields set, and this is gorgeous. And let me tell you why. This is the perfect set for someone like me. There is so much detail in these images, so much detail. So you really don't have to do a whole lot to them in order for them to look amazing. So what I'm doing is I chose not to stamp a sentiment on these. I wanted to leave them kind of open so that they were a little less confined to a particular reason. I could have stamped something simple like hello or, you know, hi or something like that on there, or hugs, but I just chose to leave it empty. And what I'm doing is I am placing this image to the kind of the bottom left corner, bottom right corner, and I'm making sure that it's not crossing my score line there. And I have one of the new Waffle Flower Grip Media mats, and I am absolutely loving those. Those are a game changer. I didn't think I would like them as much as I do. I kind of felt like my makeshift sticky mats that I've used in the past with, you know, just cut down Cricut mats would be fine, and they were. And that is definitely an option and worked really well for, you know, what I had at the time. But these are something else. I really enjoy them and highly recommend them. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and stamp this using some Gina K Amalgum ink in Obsidian. When I go to do some stamping on these envelopes, I wish I would have stamped these in brown. I wish I would have gone with a brown ink instead of this black. This black is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. But if I were to make this again, I think I would have gone with the brown, or with a brown color. Because this is such a detailed image, my ink pad is not necessarily dry. I did go back and re-ink it because I thought maybe it was because it was dry. It's not. It's just that this image is so highly detailed that I have to stamp this at least twice. And I've never used this stamp before. You saw me kind of rubbing my hand on it. That was trying to condition it a little bit. But the more I stamped with it, the less I had to kind of repeat and do CPR on it to get good coverage. But this is just a beautiful, beautiful, just detailed image. So beautiful. And it does have, and another reason why I love it is it came with coordinating stencils for this large image, and it came with dies. One of the things that I'm pointing out here is that I wish I would have paid a little more attention, because I kind of have a gap at the bottom so my image doesn't go all the way down. I could go in with a marker and, you know, extend those lines, but all I'm going to do is scoot this up 1/4 of an inch in my MISTI here and stamp, and that will make it go off the bottom of the cardstock. And this worked much better, and I liked how it looked a lot better. So I'm going to go through, I have 12 cards here and 12 envelopes. And so I'm going to go through and just stamp all of these, and then we're going to move into the stenciling. But before we get into the stenciling, I'm going to go ahead and do some stamping on these envelopes because I want that Gina K Amalgum ink to dry. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know that I was kind of struggling with it. It was supposed to be safe for pretty much every medium out there, and mine kept smearing and I didn't understand why. Like I would even heat set things and it would continue to smear, and it was getting kind of frustrated with it. So I'm letting those dry, and all I've done is use that same grip medium mat to stamp just this single sunflower image off the corner of the bottom left. This will give me room for not only my return address or a return address, but also who you're sending it to, but just gives the front of the envelope a little bit of interest. This ink is waterproof, so once it's dry, and so I'm not worried about that smearing. I'm not going to do any kind of heat setting or anything like that. I did get a smudge on this envelope, and I'm just taking a mono sand eraser and sanding that away. One of the things I discovered is that this is I know it's a white core. I was hoping I could get rid of that without getting down to the white core, but I couldn't. And so instead of restarting, I'm just going to make this envelope look kind of grungy, I guess, or distressed, if you will. So I'm just picking some random spots and again, just scratching down to that white core. This is the only envelope I did this on. This is just kind of, I didn't want to get another envelope out. I just wanted to kind of use what I had and show you that you can kind of work with what you've got. I'm not going to stress about it. Let me know if you had another way that you would have fixed that, or if you just would have gotten another envelope. Here I've got some Concord and Ninth inks. I've got avocado, nutmeg, sunflower, spiced cider, and lemongrass. I'm not actually going to be using the lemongrass. I'm going to trade that out for artichoke, but I am showing you that at the beginning. Here I'm going to take this nutmeg, and it was at this point after I stamped this Sending Sunshine on the flap of the envelope. That came from the same Simon Says Stamp Sunflower Fields set. That I was like, oh man, I wish I would have stamped those sunflowers in brown. But decisions were made, they were already stamped, I wasn't starting over. So I'm just gonna go through and on the flap of each of these envelopes, stamp in the middle as best I can. I'm just using an acrylic block and just kind of free range stamping here. Just stamp the Sending Sunshine on the flap. You could do, there are stamp sets out there that are made for your envelopes, but this is just what I did. So now all of my envelopes are done and they're stamped on the front and on the back flap. And now we're going to move into the stamping or stenciling, excuse me. I did actually heat set each of these card front panels. Again, I had been struggling with this Gina K ink, and I discovered after much trial and tribulation, it was because the ink was still wet. Even though I thought I had heat set it sufficiently, it was still wet. And so I did go back and let those dry and actually did heat set them really, really well with my heat gun. Another option would be just to let it dry for several hours or overnight. You could even run it through a laminator. If you do that, I would suggest putting some sort of paper over the top of it just to protect the ink from spreading to your carrier sheet. But that's also another option. So here I have the first stencil. These stencils are not labeled, but this is just the most open part of the sunflowers. And I took sunflower ink because I thought that was very fitting. And then just to give these flowers a little more detail and interest, because there's only 4. There's one that does the main part of the flower, one that does the sunflower center, and then one that does the leaves, and one that does the stems. So I wanted these sunflowers to have just a little more depth and dimension, so I'm taking the spiced cider and a mini ink blending brush and just kind of giving that just a little bit more definition in the middle. I thought that just added a little more something and made it a little more special. So I'm going to actually do this to all of them, and then we will move on to the next part. So here's that first layer, and I think that spiced cider really does add a nice touch. This is the second stencil, and this does the flower centers, and am looking at this and I'm thinking, I really don't think that this needs these flower centers. Like, I don't think that this is gonna add anything to these flowers. This would be good if you were gonna do some sort of paste maybe, but because I stamped this in such a dark ink, you really can't see it. So here I'm showing you one that has the ink blending for the centers and the one that doesn't, and I couldn't see any difference. So I decided that I would just, or not a difference enough that it mattered to me. So I actually skipped the center stencil and I just went right to the leaves. So for this one, I'm going to use avocado ink. I originally, like I showed you told you at the beginning of the video, showed you lemongrass. I opted not to use that. I felt like it wasn't, it was more of a limey green, and I was trying to go for some more, I guess, desaturated colors. And so, or richer colors, I guess you could say. And I really like how this looks right here. And I even thought about, as I was stenciling this and going along, I was like, man, I almost would be willing to not even color in the stems, because that kind of is a different like look. I did color in all of the stems using that artichoke ink, but these leaves I'm doing the avocado. But that's another way to kind of get different looks from your images. You don't feel like you have to be cornered into using all of the pieces parts. You can pick and choose. So I felt like that center didn't give enough difference, or enough, I don't even know what word I'm looking for. It didn't do enough for me that I felt like, man, I need to go through and this definitely adds to this. It didn't for me, so I didn't do it. But you could absolutely skip stenciling in these stems if you wanted to. You could not color in the leaves. You could just color in the first stencil. So kind of have a play and give yourself the freedom to play in order to figure out kind of what works best for you. One of the things I discovered with this stems stencil is that if I went up and down with my ink blending instead of in a swirling motion, I was less likely to get some bleeding outside of the stenciling. I was getting some kind of like smudges, for lack of better words, on some of those stems. The ink was getting outside of the stamped line, and where it wasn't a huge deal, I really wanted it to be a little bit cleaner than that. So I discovered if I went up and down like you just saw me do, I was less likely to get that smudging around those stems. So now all of the stenciling is done, but I do have some smudges and some ink that went through. So I have a couple of tools here that I find invaluable because I am a messy crafter, I guess. So I am taking that same mono sand eraser that I showed you in the beginning and trying to kind of sand away some of these ink smudges. When I get it as far gone as I think I can get it, then I will sometimes take a jelly roll pen. This is a SAKURA 808 jelly roll pen, and I will kind of rub over that. You could even use like a whiteout pen if you didn't have a jelly roll pen. That's another option. But I'm just trying to kind of soften those harsh, kind of bold ink spots. Does this work perfectly? No. Does it make me feel a little better? Yes. So here I'm showing you that I got some ink on the outside. It's kind of difficult to see in the video, but in person I can see that that ink kind of smeared. And that's where I was doing that swirling motion as opposed to the up and down. And I'm just going to go through and on all of these and just kind of clean up the inside and the outside, trying to get this to look a little bit cleaner and a little more polished and finished. But that's how I kind of troubleshoot when my inking goes awry. And that is it. So that is the envelope and the cards all done. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate you. I hope you feel inspired, and we'll give this stamp set a try and check it out because it is quite stunning and really good for those of us that are not colorers. That's it for me. Thank you again, and we will see you next time. Bye.